you may be an audit firm trainee, or you may be already working at some place, right, with the experience and the qualifications that you have, or you may be self-study. So whatever the category that you belong, sometimes the managing time is very difficult. So with that, you do hard work, and doesn't matter whatever the attempt that you take, if we can't produce what we know within those 3 hours, how many marks you score within those 3 hours, that is the main point. So if you can score the maximum number of marks, if you can ensure more than 50, more than 60, your pass is guaranteed. If you can go for even beyond that 70, that will be a great mark. You might even become a prize winner. So target for that. Do learn the theory as much as possible. Revise the theory. Practice the questions, relevant questions as much as possible, so that you will be equipped with whatever necessary for the exam. So let us go through the syllabus. Part A comprises of 20% of your syllabus, the modern management environment. It's under cost management. Modern management environment, like areas like target costing, Kaizen costing, life cycle costing, throughput accounting, just-in-time total quality management. Throughput accounting is an area which has been frequently tested, but not in all papers. You will see the analysis that we have done on the call. Later on, I'm sharing the analysis that has been done on the recent papers under the current syllabus. And this will be most probably the final exam before the syllabus change. So you are being a lucky batch to face the exam under the current syllabus. So these areas are like not tested in every paper, but there is a question out of one of these areas in most of the papers. So we need to be ready for that. And some are theory based, like Kaizen costing, just in time, total quality management. Some are theory based. And some areas involve calculations, like throughput accounting and life cycle costing involve calculations. Activity based costing I have taken separately because that's an important chapter, and it's again being tested, sometimes combined with another area, sometimes alone. It has been combined with areas like budgeting, which is in part B. Sometimes it's tested alone. So activity based costing and throughput accounting, I would say a bit complicated calculations are there, not very hard, but you need to pay some attention for those. Other areas are relatively easier, but still you need to know the theory. Strategic management, costing and value creation and supply chain, those are more into theoretical aspects, but it has been tested sometimes. Sometimes these can come for the MCQ, sometimes these things can come for short questions. Environmental aspect of cost management. Now we are talking about the ESG framework, environmental, social and governance. So ESG, environmental component is there. Sorry, environmental component is there. Now along with that, environmental costing, people don't pay much attention, but still in the syllabus it's a kind of a vital area. Like regularly this area, there had been questions in the MCQs. We get 10 MCQs for going for 20 marks. So it has been there, but sometimes it can come as a part of a 10-mark question or a 20-mark question also. Environmental aspect of cost management, or simply you can say environmental costing. And learning curve theory. Learning curve theory usually is combined with another area like project evaluation, maybe like with budgeting, maybe with standard costing. It's combined, but it's coming under this. So there are a lot of short topics, except for activity based costing and the throughput accounting and maybe life cycle costing a little bit, but throughput accounting, activity based costing, those are like areas where we need to spend a bit more time. Other areas you need to know the theory and how to approach a question simply. So those areas comprise of the cost management, the first 20% of the syllabus. Then we move on to part B, 25% of the syllabus comprising of planning and control. I would say heart of management accounting is here. You have standard costing and variance analysis, a very famous area for the examiner, right? We will be thoroughly going through questions and answers related to this area, because these areas theory you need to know, but theory we won't be spending too much of time. I'll be mostly working on questions and answers, so that you get the approach for the exam. Budgeting combined with standard costing and variance analysis, and budgeting sometimes tested together. Sometimes you get two different questions for 20 marks even, because syllabus 25%. No? Sometimes you get a 10-mark question for standard costing, 10-mark question for budgeting. Sometimes a 20-mark question for standard costing and budgeting together. Sometimes it's combined with an area like learning curve also, so it can come up with a different weightage. So it's there. And there are connected areas, theoretical areas like beyond budgeting and balanced scorecard. Balanced scorecard, my dear students, talk about non-financial aspects. Financial aspects of forecasting future is talked under budgeting. Non-financial aspect is discussed by Kaplan and Norton. Balanced scorecard, another important area. So basically it's budgeting. Beyond budgeting is a simple concept about budgeting. It's a theoretical area. Balanced scorecard is also mostly theoretical, but can come up as a complete question also. Not tested every time, but can be tested. Capacity planning or capacity management. Again, there had been few questions recently, like about 10 marks they spent, they want to ask, or maybe capacity planning, some area can come under MCQ as well. Responsibility centers and transfer pricing. Now, actually speaking, this is the way that the institute, Chartered Institute, had categorized the areas just to give the weightage, because sometimes you don't get, you get questions only out of standard costing or budgeting, and you can get a question out of transfer pricing or responsibility center. So you balance the paper weightage around 25% to 30% with those areas. But in my case, what I'll be doing is pricing is under part C. I'll be first of all discussing pricing, theoretical aspects on pricing and few questions out of that, and then we'll be moving on to transfer pricing and responsibility centers, because without knowing pricing, my dear students, you can't talk about transfer pricing. So even though the syllabus allocates like this, I'm not going in the same order, right? But I'll be making sure that all the areas are covered and you are guided and giving more attention for more important areas. So transfer pricing and responsibility centers like cost centers, revenue centers, profit centers and investment centers, centralized organizations, decentralized organizations, all these things we are covering. Transfer pricing within the organization, from one division to another, you transfer goods, and when you are charging prices applicable for the decentralized centers. So that area will be covering here. Very important areas are there: standard costing, budgeting, balanced scorecard, and transfer pricing and responsibility centers. So when we analyze the papers, you will see there have been a lot of questions out of these areas, and we'll be going through most of them. Talking about the decision making, 30%, part C is 30%. Pricing is one area, as I told you. So they can give test questions combining pricing and transfer pricing. So transfer pricing 5 marks, pricing 5 marks. So it can come like that, or you can get a complete question for 10 marks or 20 marks for pricing as well, because it's 30%. Short-term decision making, we are talking about CVP, cost volume profit. That is actually break-even analysis. The break-even quantities, single products and multiple products, both. Limiting factor, LF stands for limiting factor analysis, okay, another important area. And then we move on to linear programming. Now, my dear students, linear programming had been a major area about 10 years back. Now the weightage, the relative importance is a bit less, but linear programming, you have the graphical method and simplex method both. In my theory videos, you will get about 3 comprehensive videos on how to solve graphical and simplex questions, and we'll be moving on to questions also. But if you look at the papers, the regularity of being tested is very low. Right now, this recording happens at a particular point. The June 2023 exam is yet to happen. Once I get that paper also, I will update the past paper analysis and discuss with you when I meet you. The thing is, like the linear programming, even though it's a very important area, hard area, I'm not giving too much of emphasis on that in my questions and answers, because the probability of testing had come down a little bit, but I'll be making sure that you are guided if you get a question how to approach it. But we may not be spending too much of time, because more than that, you get the discontinuation, make or buy. These areas are tested rotationally. You get one paper, you get a break-even analysis question, another paper, maybe discontinuation or a make or buy decision. Sometimes you can get 2 questions also, because we can go up to 30%. 30% of the syllabus, like you can go up to 30 marks. Examiner might be testing 25 to 30 marks in this area. Long-term decision making, project evaluation. Almost in every paper you have an NPV question, IRR question, something to do with project evaluation. Can be easily combined with other areas like working capital management, learning curve theory, and maybe with areas like decision theory and all. It can be combined. Sometimes alone you get project evaluation. So this is a very important area. So here, break-even analysis is important. Limiting factor analysis can be tested. LP is not regularly tested. Discontinuation, make or buy, time to time tested. So CVP is one of the key areas. Project evaluation is one of the key areas. Pricing is one of the key areas. Big data for decision making is a theoretical area. They are sometimes putting a question for MCQs. Sometimes you can get a few marks of question on theory aspects. But there had been one instance where you had about 10 marks or 20 marks question. But apart from that, it's not a major area. It may be combined with another area, but so you need to pay some attention on CVP, project evaluation, pricing. I'm not saying other things are not important, but those things also will be covering, but relatively the importance is less. Moving on to risk and uncertainty, part D, 15% of the syllabus. Probabilistic and non-probabilistic decision making, the key area there, where you talk about the probability, the expected values, payoff tables we are studying. Non-probabilistic decision making techniques are like maxi-max rule, maxi-min rule, mini-max regret rule. Those things we'll be covering. And probabilistic decision making is combined with decision trees. Another area, the decision trees we are going to study under risk and uncertainty. And project evaluation with risk. Now, project evaluation is here, but sometimes it can be combined with risk, the sensitivity analysis, Monte Carlo simulation, and so on. It can be combined with those areas. So it comes under here as well. So it can be a question like, okay, you might be thinking sometimes the weightage for part C is more than 30%. No, it may be a project evaluation question combined with a risk assessment, risk management section as well. So it's about the sensitivity of the NPV, sensitivity of the IRR or sensitivity of the discounting rate, sensitivity of revenue, sensitivity of cost of sales. When one factor changes, what will be the impact on net present value? Those things we'll be covering here. Now, if you are a new student, you may not understand any of these things. Don't worry. Each and every area, step by step, we'll be going through when we are covering the syllabus. So please go through all the theory videos where I explain to the maximum level that I can in the simplest possible way, where you will understand. But if you have already gone through the syllabus once, or if you have attempted the exam previously, or if you have followed classes with me or somewhere else previously, or if you are a revision student, you may understand what I am saying. So just pay attention a little bit, because the first itself I am setting the expectations. Risk management and thorough framework. So that is basically again an important area, a theory area. There had been few questions in the recent past on this area. The thorough framework talks about TARA stands for transfer, accept, reduce and avoid. Transfer, avoid, reduce and accept. That's the way, right? AAs can be changed. Risk, sometimes you have to transfer the risk to another place, like getting an insurance or something. Sometimes you have to avoid risk, no, don't take that risk. Sometimes you have to reduce the risk. You can't mitigate, you can't eliminate, but you can mitigate, reduce it. Sometimes you have to accept the risk, right? So that depends on your risk appetite. We are talking about risk management and the thorough framework. So few important areas, I would say. All these areas are important under part D, but unfortunately, not every area will be tested in every paper. So we'll have to be ready a little bit by making some intelligent guesses. Or since you have time, I recommend study all the areas and be ready, because you may get questions out of these areas. Definitely 15% will be there. Sometimes it comes down to 10 to 12% also. But what I will tell you is all areas are important, but all areas will not be tested in every paper. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. Finally, the last 10%, part E, is working capital management. So we are talking about the working capital. Basically, working capital is, my dear students, current assets minus current liabilities. Current assets minus current liabilities. If you take your balance sheet, basically you will have a T-type balance sheet. If I put your T-type balance sheet, you have your property, plant and equipment, or the fixed assets. You have your current assets, where you get the inventory, then you get the debtors, accounts receivable, and cash and cash equivalent, right? Cash and bank. And your current liabilities, mainly you get the trade creditors and other creditors, payables, and you may have your equity and long-term liabilities here. So basically the difference between the current assets and current liabilities is what we call as the working capital. Working capital is equal to current assets minus current liabilities, the net working capital also sometimes you say. So here, my dear students, we are mainly focusing on the current assets, inventory, debtors and cash equivalent. So we have broader areas, inventory management or inventory control, right, which had been there in the syllabus. I think when we were studying also it was there. Cash management, right, cash management, the Baumol model and few other models, we are going to Miller or model and so on, we are going to learn cash management. And debtors management, how we manage our debtors, right? So there are few theories that are applicable for that, factoring and few other things we are discussing there. And creditors management also a little bit, sometimes it comes like creditors management, not that important, but sometimes you get questions. But overall working capital management, again we have questions. So we are going to discuss almost all the questions out of this area, because one question is different to another. Within this 10%, you might get about 10 mark question in the part B of the paper, or maybe you get some 1 or 2 MCQs and less number of marks in the part B or part C. But anyway, one question is different to another, and I recommend you to go through all the papers and model questions and targeted other exam questions on this area to be thorough with this and being able to apply, because definitely we will get a question out of this area, right? In every paper, definitely we are going to get a question out of this area, because it's 10% of the syllabus. Now let me quickly take you through the analysis of papers, as I told you, like up to the point where at the time of me recording this video, June 2024 paper is not released. So once it comes, I will add it and reshare the past paper analysis with y'all. So you can see this is the weightage that we talked about. Part A, cost management 20%, planning and control 25%, decision making 30%, risk and uncertainty 15%, working capital management 10%. The 5 areas in the syllabus. How it has been tested, this is including the MCQs I have taken. If you don't know the paper structure, you get 10 questions of MCQs, 2 into 10 questions. So let me just elaborate that also a little bit. The paper, how you get the paper, right? There are about not about exactly part 1. The first question comprises of 10 multiple choice questions, MCQs, Bahuvarana Prashna, MCQs. 2 marks into 10. 2 marks into 10, 20 marks, right? Four choices are there. You have to pick up the correct one. Some are theoretical and straightforward, just you have to simply find the answer. There may be 1 or 2 questions where you need to do a small calculation, apply your knowledge and get the answer as well. So it's not just calculation, theory is also there. Question number 2, 3, 4, 5, right? These are 4 4 questions, 10 marks, carrying 10 marks each, 10 marks into 4 questions. So we end up with 40 marks here, 40 marks here, right? 40 marks here. So those are like relatively easier. You can finish within a short span of time, and then you'll be able to complete it. So 40 marks are there. And last 2 questions, all questions are mandatory. 20 marks each into 2 questions, where you end up with another 40 marks. So that is how your 100 marks are split, right? Now my approach usually for the exam, what I recommend the students is, start off with the MCQs or start off with this, right? You will be getting, the paper is 3 hours. So 180 minutes you have. Paper will be given 15 to 20 minutes in advance. So 15 minutes of reading time is there for you. We can't write answers there, but reading time you can utilize to go through the questions, identify the areas and pick up the ones you are going to do first. I recommend either start from the MCQs or start from this, because relatively quickly you can finish them. And since we have 100 marks, 180 minutes are there, my recommendation is, if you take 180 minutes, 3 hours is 180 minutes. If you divide by 100 marks, so per mark you can spend only 1.8 minutes. I would say per mark you spend only 1.5 minutes. That's my recommendation. That means if it is a 10 mark question, we'll try to finish this within 15 minutes. Practically it may not be possible always, but we'll try to have that average. 4 questions of 10 marks, we'll try to close within 1 hour. Within 1 hour, maximum 1 hour and 10 minutes, we'll try to finish. Out of 40 marks, you may score certain number of marks there. Like even if you score 50%, you get 20 marks. But I'll guide you how to score more than that. I'll guide you how to score even 35 out of 40. I won't say 40 out of 40, but maybe 35 out of 40 even you can do. But let's say on an average student, you might score about 20 marks. 1 hour and 10 minutes, you have got 20 marks. MCQ, some are like tuck, tick, tock, tick, tack, tick, tock, tack, we say. So these are like, not, you don't have to say tuck, tick, tock, but if you have studied properly, you know how to pick up the correct answer. There may be few questions where you need to do some calculations, but I would say for the 20 marks, don't spend more than half an hour. Some questions you can quickly finish off. 30 to 35 minutes we'll target to finish it. Maximum 35 minutes you'll have to take. So 1 hour and 10 minutes and 35 minutes, 1 hour and 45 minutes, more than another 1 hour to go. You have completed questions relevant for 60 marks. At least this half is correct. I'm just putting the minimum. At least half is correct. You have scored 30 out of 60. Unless you have made a careless mistake, right? So don't do careless mistakes. Be very mindful. Check your calculations again. You can use the scientific calculators, FX991MS, FX100MS, whatever the version. New versions are there. I'm not very familiar with the new version, so you can use them, and you do your calculations very carefully. Check what you have done again, because if you make a mistake in calculations, my students, you might not get marks for that step. But for the steps, you might get some number of marks, but for the answer, you are not going to get the full marks if your answer is incorrect. But let's say with all these provisions, out of 60 marks, you have completed, you have earned about 30 marks. Now, less than or more than 1 more hour to go, you are 30 marks. Another 20 minimum needed. Now, that you are going to score from the question number 6 and 7. But I would say when you properly do a good job, out of the 60 marks, you can even go for 40, 45 marks. You are very safe. You have completed 5 questions out of 7 before end of 2 hours. Before end of by 1 hour and 45 minutes, you have completed. So you are very safe. You are confidently going into the question number 6 and 7, because these usually take some time. right? Some students like to start from these. I don't recommend, because if you start from this, you will easily spend 1.5 hours for those 2 questions, maybe even more, right? Because you want to complete it, but still out of 40 marks, that's okay. But you are taking a bit of a risk. You have another 5 questions to go on with the MCQ, 10 MCQs and 4 more questions. You may have less than 1.5 hours. That's a risk. So my recommendation is complete all these 5 by, for this one 35 minutes, for this one 35 minutes, 35 minutes, okay, and for these 4 like 1 hour. 1 hour is the recommendation, plus 10 minutes I would say, right? So by for 1 hour and 45 minutes, 1 hour and 45 minutes, you are done with 5 questions, right? So with that mentality, you go for this, score the maximum possible number of marks, target the number of marks, whatever you know you answer, whatever you don't know just leave it for the time being and go on. So try to gain the, because usually the researchers have shown in any exam, unless you have really given up, my students I don't recommend, I won't expect that to happen. The maximum number of marks are scored in the last hour, right? Your speeding, rate of speeding increases and you start, writing very fast. You try to apply, you go back and check any questions that you have skipped and try to answer. So maximum number of marks you score within the last hour. So that is where last 1 hour, 1 hour and 15 minutes, if you are spending for this, even if you don't complete all the questions or both questions completely, you may score a decent amount of marks there. So anything beyond 25 to 30 marks here, you are passed, right? So if you have done really well here, 40 out of 60, right? Even 20 out of these marks will be, you are having 60 marks. So that's a very good mark, I would say, right? But I will guide you even to score 75, 80 marks or even to become a prize winner, don't worry. But just work hard, have a plan, right? Every week I'm going to spend this much of hours for management accounting. It could be your late night, it could be your early morning, it could be your weekend. Because from Infinity Space Business School, we are providing these syllabuses, we are providing these recordings. You can download at any point. You can download at any point. In the sense, you can watch at any point. I'm sorry, the word not downloading. You can watch it any number of times, and if you are using a dial-up network, I think the data is free of charge. I'm not promoting any mobile network or anything, but whatever the mobile network you are using, that's okay. You can watch this any number of time repeatedly. That's the advantage. If you are traveling in a bus or a train, while you are traveling, even you can listen whatever going on. And even like whenever the free time that you have, be it night, morning, whatever the working hours you are having, whatever the studying hours you are having, you may be doing other exams also, you may be a university student, you may be studying for some other exams as well. You can manage your time. That flexibility is there. So just work on this approach. I'm just giving an overview on the paper. And so this is the weightage, if you can see, in most areas. Like, okay, now you see, most papers it's 20%, sometimes it has been 22, 18, but on average it has been 20% in all the papers. This is from December 2020 to December 2023, 7 papers are here. With June 2024, we'll be having 8 past papers, and there's a pilot paper also. So there are 9 papers under the current syllabus. But sometimes I'm going back to even 2015 onwards, some of the questions I'm discussing, because some are very valuable and relevant, but the paper structure is slightly different, but some questions are really valid. I'm going back to even up to 15. You can download all the papers from CS Sri Lanka website. You can download the suggested answers also, but be mindful when we are using suggested answers. Sometimes there are errors, sometimes there are like the approach is not very clear. So those things I'm going to share with you while we are discussing the questions. So the approach and mechanism that is not there in the suggested solutions, you will be getting to know with me. But referring them is okay, because 95%, more than 99%, I would say the answers are correct. But sometimes the approach is not very clear. There had been few instances I have noticed the answers are not that correct. Okay. Planning and control, standard costing, budgeting, balance scorecard, beyond budgeting, that area, like syllabus weightage is 25%, you see 26, 24, 28, 26, around 25, it has been evolving, sometimes 28 also, right? So those are exceptions. Decision making, 30% where the CVP analysis, all this stuff are there, limiting factor, linear programming, project evaluation, and all this stuff we discussed. So 30, it's around 30, sometimes 32. In one paper, it has come down to 26. Maybe some other area, the weightage has gone up. So planning and control 24%, and some other area has gone up. Yes, yes, risk and uncertainty has gone up in that paper. But that's an exception, but usually other areas like 30, it's between 28% to 33%, so around 30% you have been getting questions. Risk and uncertainty had been 15%. Most of the papers it had been 10% or 12%, except in one paper, December 2022, 20% was there. So it's around 10%, 10 to 12%, usually decision theory, probabilistic decision making and non-probabilistic decision making, risk and uncertainty and all. Finally, working capital management, the syllabus weightage is 10%, so it's around 10%, okay, around 10%, sometimes 12%, slightly high. You get MCQs also, a 10-mark question and a 2 marks MCQ sometimes. In one paper, it has gone up to 17%, so there had been some variation there, but usually it's around 10%. Usually the examiners have tried to stick to the same weightage, almost the same weightage of the syllabus, so we can presume that it will be the same in the upcoming exam. Now, the secret of success, as I told you, the essential theory is covered through the theory video. So, from today onwards, you are gaining access to all these theory videos. You can go through them, right? Most of the theory videos, almost all the theory videos are there, like, but you'll be getting them maybe at regular intervals, because otherwise you'll be overloaded with the videos. And depends on like how you purchase the package as well. So it's 50% of that your success will be getting to know the theory. But in between, I'm adding questions and answers, also some exam preparation questions as well. Practicing questions 50%. So they are like exam preparation module is there. I'm giving some questions, and this year I'm going to, as I told you, I'm going to take some different approach for your approach that I'm going to share. As we go on, I'm going to share that. Practicing questions is the key to pass the exam. So more number of questions. Once you study a theory area, take your past papers, take your other exams like maybe CIMA, ACCA, ICAW, those resources I'll share with you. Similar model questions are there, and I might share a few questions with my tutorials and model questions. Try and attempt, try and try again doing all these questions. That is the key to pass the exam. Why AMA is considered as a difficult subject? Okay. Fear of calculations related to mathematics and quantitative. Some are like more mathematical and quantitative, probability, decision theory, project evaluation, numbers, these powers, divisions, all these things are there. Linear programming, sometimes we'll have to calculate a little bit, but not that calculation that much. Now they have changed the approach in linear programming a lot. You will realize, not like good old days. Inventory control and all, square root and all you need to apply. So calculator is being used. So fear of calculations. One, it's like 60 to 70% of the stuff is calculations, I would say. Yes. So that's the thing. Lack of knowledge in theory. So sometimes you are not afraid of calculation, but you don't know the theory. Then you simply don't know how to answer. So please get to know the theory. Number one, 50% of your success is getting to know the essential theory. Lack of knowledge in applying the theory into practical scenario. You know the theory, but you don't know how to apply it to the practical scenario. Right? So that you can gain by doing more questions. Essential theory 50%, get to know the theory. Watch the videos again if you don't know, can't remember. Then practicing questions. So you can overcome these two with that. Calculations also, do more and more questions, you will overcome your doubt. Lack of commitment towards the studies. You think, okay, I have 6 months, I have 5 more months, I have 4 more months, I don't want to study now. I'll just watch the video, but I'll practice questions during the last 2 months. Don't do that, please. Start from today itself and start working, have a timetable, allocate a minimum number of hours every week. You may not do AMA every day, that I am not expecting, but at least it's a number of hours within the week that you try to cover. Learn the videos, watch something related to this in the YouTube, maybe even practice questions, take the papers, download everything, have the papers with you, start doing the answers, watch my answers, take down my answers, watch the suggested answers, go through them. If there are any doubts, we'll be in touch with the Telegram group. You can always contact me, right? I'll try to answer within the same day. If my responses are getting delayed, just keep on reminding me. I'll try to answer. But when we are close to the exam, my responses are like mostly up to date. But within the day, I'll somehow try to respond your question. So Telegram group, we can keep it as a mode of communication. Lack of practicing questions on the examination environment. So you think that you are doing it at the exam. When this part you can try when we are a bit close to the exam. Once you have studied the theory a little bit, once you started doing some questions, then you practice like you are doing the paper. Plan for the time. You may not spend the entire 3 hours doing the entire paper, but let's say you are doing a 10-mark questions. Have a target, I'm going to do it within 15 minutes or maximum 20 minutes. Time yourself and do it. So that we can do when we are close to the exam, right? Maybe 1 hour you do, okay, you try to complete 3 questions or 4 questions of 10 marks. That you try, right? So that exam environment you keep, you move away from others, move away from the noisy places and try to focus on the paper and try to work out in the same way that you are doing at the exam. So just these things, if we practice, you won't be having, these are the reasons why AM is considered a difficult subject, but you can overcome this. I'll be guiding you. So our program for the theory students, basically from today onwards, we are starting the theory classes, essential theory recorded videos. But to this, I'm going to add something, because usually I had a set of theory videos and then we record the theory videos and present, and we have a few questions relevant for exam preparation module. Then I move on to the live classes, especially within the last 3-4 months towards the exam. Live sessions are important. Either Saturday or Sunday, we'll be spending about 3 to 4 hours where you can interact with me, you can talk to me, you can bring your questions. It will be a live class, online of course, but you can interact with me and discuss any problems that you have, and I'll be doing questions basically. But this time I'm planning to add a few more things to that. Few live sessions close to the exam, maybe the last 2-3 months, yes, we'll be having live sessions. But I'll be adding on more recorded videos, because now you complete standard costing and budgeting, covering all those areas, maximum number of questions are possible. I will record and provide the answer, so you can work out with me. All these recordings will be uploaded to your module, and once it is uploaded, you can go through that any number of times until the exam is over. It will be available for you any number of times. You can go through the videos again and again. You can go through, you can pause, go back, rewind and fast forward. You can do it in any way that you like and be thorough with your area, right? Question bank discussion covering important papers CL3 and KB2 starting from June 2015 to July 2024, right? July 2024 paper is yet to come, but with that, sorry, June 2024 it should be, rather June 2024 it has to be corrected, right? So it will be like we'll be having about 9 years, in the sense almost 18 papers are there. So I may not be doing all the questions before 2020, but most of the questions relevant for your syllabus I'll be doing. But that will be a question bank for us, so we can try whatever relevant for us out of these areas. There are revision kit questions you can try with the Chartered Institute study pack. You get revision kit, you can try those on your own. Selected questions from SEMA, ACC and ICW I may be sharing with you, and we'll be discussing some questions like that. And revision of all theory with practical examples, so that we are covering with the live sessions and the recorded videos on questions and answers. And there will be a model question discussion or a mock paper close to the exam. So some model questions I'll give you, and we might have a discussion just to rehearse ourselves for the exam purpose. To all my students, your goal should be to pass the exam in December 2024. That should be your primary goal. I'm recommending allocate minimum 10 hours per week. Minimum 10 hours per week. That's my recommendation. You can decide, okay, it can be even more. You can set your target. Minimum 10 hours. It could be every day 1 or 2 hours. Every day 2 hours means 14 hours, or maybe you might be doing other things also, other subjects, other exams. So maybe like 2 or 3 days you allocate that number of hours, or weekend 1 day for this. Likewise, you allocate the number of hours studying theory, watching recorded videos, practicing questions, and attending live sessions. Close to the exam, we'll be having live sessions. May not be every week, sometimes every week, sometimes I'll share the schedule. We'll be having the live sessions. So with all these things, minimum 10 hours, but close to the exam, I would say increase the number of hours per week. So you decide if you can allocate more time, yes, good. But at least allocate this time. So my commitment I am giving you, my commitment, my support, maybe 60%. Okay. So balance 40% is with you, but reality speaking, it's you who put 60%, I'm giving only 40%. So your commitment and contribution is much more important than me, but I'm there to support you and guide you until the exam is done. So basically that's what I want to share with you, and I wish you all the best. So keep in touch, stay tuned with Infinity Space. I'm Chaturanga Ratna Singh, your lecturer for Advanced Management Accounting. I'll be there to guide you. Keep in touch with me through Telegram group, right, where all of you will be added and I'll be a part of that. Keep in touch during the live sessions, but most importantly, watch the theory videos, watch the question and answer videos, and come up with your own way of doing the exam or attempting the question. And if there are any doubts, I will always be there to support you. So looking forward to have a fantastic 6 months. Join with us for this journey, and we will make sure that you will be equipped enough to face the exam and come up with a desirable outcome. All the best.